This hour begins with the fight against corruption in Nigeria. Former Kogi Governor Yahaya Bello has appeared before the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission on Wednesday, responding to an invitation following allegations of fraud and corrupt enrichment during his tenure. Bello, who had been declared wanted by the EFCC, decided to cooperate after consulting with his family, legal team and political allies. A statement from his media team emphasized his commitments to the rule of law and due process. Bello, accompanied by notable figures, expressed confidence in President Tinubu's anti-corruption efforts and highlighted his own track record of fighting graft in Kogi State. Details of his engagements with the EFCC will be revealed later. But in the meantime, to discuss this, we are joined by a legal practitioner, Justice Ojienoh. Thank you so much, Mr. Ojienoh, for joining us on the news. Can you please unmute your device so that we can hear you?
No, it's unmuted. I'm not muted.
Okay, beautiful. We can hear you now. So for you, what specific allegations of fraud and corrupt enrichment would you say has been leveled against Yahaya Bello and are valid?
No, it's, with respect to that, that's a question for a competent court of law to be able to give an order upon. I'm just a lawyer. It is for me to, if you engage me, for me to state my own argument and for the other party to state their own argument, and it is for a competent court that has jurisdiction to be able to actually pronounce on what allegations are valid or not. And it's also going to be very, very difficult for me to talk at all on the part of the matter that is in court because it is considered subject to this.
So we understand. Yes, we understand the provision of the law as regards matters in court, but then, of course, I believe you are already in the know of the situations around the former governor, Yahaya Bello, that speaks to corruption and the fact that certain amounts of cash, or should I say funds, were taken out of the government's coffers and being expended on pecuniary, things, so to speak. What we just want to establish is to understand the veracity of these allegations leveled against him and what it means for a political figure like the ex-governor of the state.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah, a number of charges were preferred against him, and I think that the total amount, it's about more than 80 billion. I think it's in the ballpark of 88 billion naira. So I feel that it is very, very correct and germane for any anti-graft agency, especially the EFCC in this case. And if you check the case of AG Ondo State and AG Federation, the court already stated that the EFCC and the ICPC, they actually have the power to proceed against corrupt officials, and it doesn't matter if the amounts or the monies that were pilfered or outrightly stolen belong to either the federal government or the state government. So corruption is a matter that these anti-graft agencies actually have the power to actually investigate, as is being done in this situation. So it's very, very valid, and I don't think that is one of the matters before a court of law, because if it is one of the matters before the court, it has been long, long decided. And of course, unfortunately, what is supposed to be protecting a person like Yahaya Bello, who is the provision of Section 308 of our Constitution, which touches on immunity? And it looked to me as if they forgot that on the last day of their stay in office, that the protection, that power, that umbrella actually expires. And it forms a reason why this is a very, very funny case to me, because if it were an ordinary person that had been invited by any anti-graft agency, nobody gives you this length of time for you to pick and choose and consider whether it is the appropriate time for you to honor a court judgment. So I think that those are some of the minuses that I've seen in this case, and those are where I think that there have been infractions or when it comes to the obedience to the order of the court that has told him since to present himself for investigation.
Okay, well said. Now, of course, he has come out to say that, or he has actually alluded to his track record of fighting corruption in Kogi State while he was governor. But then a few people would consider the fact that why didn't he honor the EFCC invitation as at when he was called upon to come and defend himself if truly he was clean of whatever allegations are leveled against him, to the point that it took him so long to even honor that particular invitation. So what does that tell you?
Okay, for me, I think that it's very, very unfortunate that it took him this long, because just like I said earlier, between an average person, the best you can get, which we do in practice, is to actually tell the police or the anti-graft agency that, sorry, I may not be able to make it in 24 hours, or due to prior engagements, I may not be able to make it at the time you're inviting me to come. Can you please let me shift it to a later time, which you perfectly have a right to do. And we must also remember that there's a reason why they are called law enforcement authority. They are an authority. So when they tell you to come, especially when it comes to matters that they have constitutional and legal powers to investigate, you have to actually come. And the court gave an order, and you are coming at a time that you feel like. And because he did this, it won't be shocking to a person like me if the EFCC, for example, if they refuse to let him go back home today. Yeah, I'm happy that he said that important people followed him there. But no matter how important the delegation that accompanied you to a place is, your track record can be checked, and the EFCC can just decide that, okay, they are not going to grant him administrative bail because is a flight risk, and that also can happen to him if his bail application is eventually moved in court, and the court also can actually also just choose to refuse to give him bail. So these are some of the challenges that come with you not presenting yourself when the authorities or the courts ask you to present yourself.
So now, does this investigation reflect the effectiveness of the EFCC and President Tinubu's anti-corruption initiatives? And for you, are there any concerns about the agency's capacity to handle such complex cases like this?
Okay, for me, because he remained within the sovereign space of Nigeria and lingered till this moment before he presented himself, it's a huge spite on the authority and the power of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Because if it were another person, you would not have taken it. It's almost like it's more than 6 months now, or something in that ballpark, and this looks like a shock to us. And if it were another person, they'll be getting to EFCC office in shackles. But now he's going with an entourage, and he's talking about the confidence that he has in the system and the fact that he has fought graft when he was governor. For me, I think it's a slap on the face of the authorities in Nigeria, despite the fact that, yes, right reason eventually prevailed. This is not one of the cases where I will admit that it is better late than never, because the fact that it is late is a disgrace to law enforcement in Nigeria.
And of course, Nigerians also feel it's a slap on the constitution for the current governor to have helped him escape, as at a time that a siege was laid on his house. But then, this is Nigeria. Well, Justice...
The governor should be able to pay that price when the time comes, when his own immunity too expires.
Well, we hope so that justice will always prevail in situations like this. Justice Ojienoh, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure.
To security matters now, the Nigerian government has announced plans to destroy all seized illicit arms and ammunition by the end of September, including obsolete and decommissioned weapons from arms-bearing agencies. Coordinator of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons, retired DIG Johnson Kokumo, made this known during a workshop in Abuja that 3,383 small arms and light weapons, along with 26,700 49 rounds of ammunition have been recovered. Kokomo stressed that the upcoming destruction exercise is vital for permanently removing these weapons from circulation. National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, represented by Ibrahim Babani, reaffirmed President Tinubu's commitment to curbing arms proliferation through new legislative measures. Staying with security, the Nigeria police have arrested 14 suspects involved in serious crimes, including kidnapping, murder, and banditry. Force Public Relations Officer Muyiwa Adejobi said the suspects face charges related to armed robbery, homicide, unlawful possession of firearms, rape, defilement, and cultism. Authorities recovered 185 firearms, 4,087 rounds of ammunition, 111 vehicles, and rescued 129 kidnapped victims. He added that 284 firearms, 6,702 rounds of ammunition, 107 vehicles, and 97 victims were recovered in separate operations. Adejobi also announced the arrest of a gun-running gang in Bauchi and detailed the recovery of a stolen PKT machine gun and other ammunition. The police continue their efforts to combat crime nationwide, according to the latest statement.
1 month, the Nigerian police force has made remarkable achievements in the fight against crime and criminality, including violent crimes, recording the arrest of 295 armed robbery suspects, 186 kidnappers, 271 murder/homicide suspects, and 71 suspects for unlawful possession of firearms. The force has also arrested 199 suspects for sexual-related offenses, 143 suspects arrested for cultism, and 1,575 suspects arrested for other various crimes. The total number of firearms recovered stands at 185, with a total number of 4,087 ammunition of various calibers recovered from various suspects. 111 vehicles recovered, and 129 rescued kidnapped victims. Notable successes have been recorded by Nigerian police force in its recent anti-crime efforts, with several remarkable accomplishments achieved nationwide during the period under review, of which some will be briefly highlighted. The leadership of the Inspector General of Police remains steadfast in its quest towards ensuring perpetrators of heinous crimes are brought to book and creating an enabling environment for the general public to go about their daily lawful activities without any form of fear. We will not relent in our pursuit of ensuring crimes and criminality are brought to their barest minimum accordance with the rule of law and upholding the highest standards of professionalism in carrying out extant duties of protection of lives and property, maintenance of law and order, and apprehension of all offenders. I want to reassure you again, on behalf of the Inspector General of Police, that we will continue to fish them out. Those elements who are out there to cause pain, sorrows, and tears to innocent Nigerians. I always say that you can only run, you can...
Many thanks for staying with us. We're still talking security in a bid to address recurring cases of clashes between farmers and herders over scarce resources. The European Union, through the International Organization for Migration and the Search for Common Ground, has called for more advocacy using creative arts. This was during the launch of the EU's Comitas project in Adamawa State, northeast Nigeria, where community members were trained on local strategies on resolving conflicts. Our correspondent, Idong Joseph, filed in this report.
Nigeria has witnessed an alarming rise in farmer-herder clashes, fueled by competition over scarce resources. This has been identified to be caused by demographic growth, expansion of human settlements, and climate change, amongst others.
From 2016, we're having many problems in our areas, especially Gire, local government under Cambo wards and under Geren wards. Between farmers and herders, we're having many problems.
To contribute to the mitigation of this crisis, particularly in Adamawa State, northeastern Nigeria, the European Union has initiated a project to encourage communities to leverage the power of arts, notably drama and entertainment, to tell real-life stories of citizens affected by the conflicts.
Normally, it is drug abuse that brings problems between the farmers and the herders. So that is why we have dramatized and show how it's affecting the problems between farmers and herders and how it is being solved. Is to see that people live in harmony, especially herders and the farmers. So you can see that the drama is showing something that amicable solution.
The European Union says that drama can be a tool that not only engages communities, but also empowers them to find lasting solutions to the crisis instigated by clashes between farmers and herders.
We brought about an idea called participatory theater, a way whereby the community members will sit down, script their issues, they will sit down and write about the things that bother them in their communities, and then come out to act it out.
The EU, in a bid to ensure the sustainability of the project, has earmarked the initiative for 9 local government areas of the state. These experts say will help build a unified approach to addressing underlying tensions.
And now to this business story. The Central Bank of Nigeria is expanding the use of its digital currency, e-Naira, to facilitate payments into government accounts. Ministries, departments and agencies will now be able to initiate vendor and beneficiary payments from their e-Naira wallets. This move aims to enhance the adoption of e-Naira in both public and private sectors. The CBN will also deploy e-Naira version 2.0, focusing on expanding the role of deposit money banks. Additional features include offline functionality and programmable money, integrating e-Naira into online and offline government activities. The e-Naira offers benefits like faster and cheaper payments, increased financial inclusion and reduced fraud. The CBN will continue to drive its adoption and enhance its features. And now to discuss this, we are joined by Dr. Samson Simon, Chief Economist at ARC Economics and Data Limited, while in Abuja, Nigeria. Thank you so much, Dr. Simon, for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Dr. Simon, if you can hear me, now e-Naira makes up less than 1% of the total currency in circulation as of March 2024, almost 3 years after it was launched. So is the CBN's focus on expanding e-Naira usage in government transactions apt in ensuring a fully digitized Nigerian economy?
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Simon, Dr. Simon, we're having issues with your audio. We can't hear you properly. Dr. Simon, so I guess we're having issues with the quality of Dr. Simon's audio right there. Probably we'll be able to bring him back on while we rectify that particular issue to understand the situations around the e-Naira, why it has not actually picked and what needs to be done by the Nigerian government, of course, through the help of the CBN. Let's talk politics now. Governors of the People's Democratic Party have reaffirmed their recognition of Siminalayi Fubara as the party leader in Rivers State, despite ongoing tensions with the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike. Following a meeting in Taraba State, the PDP Governors Forum expressed full support for Fubara and called on the party's National Working Committee to address concerns surrounding the recent party congresses in Rivers. Wike, displeased with this development, has threatened to retaliate against governors who challenge his influence. In response, Bauchi State Governor Bala Mohammed, who chairs the PDP Governors Forum, humorously said Bauchi has enough water to quench the fire, while reaffirming the forum's backing of Fubara's leadership in Rivers State. We head to Edo State, where the Independent National Electoral Commission says over 2 million registered voters in Edo State are expected to participate in Saturday's governorship election. This number represents 85.57% of the total registered voters who have collected their permanent voter cards. The electoral umpire says the remaining 379,245 PVCs are yet to be collected. INEC has made data on PVC collection available by polling unit, with voting set to occur at 4,519 polling units across the state. The electoral body added that detailed PVC collection data is now accessible on INEC's website for political parties, candidates, and the public. We also tell you that the first batch of 35,000 police personnel has arrived in Edo State to ensure law and order ahead of Saturday's governorship election. Troops from the Nigerian Army, Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission are also on ground to secure a peaceful voting process. 17 candidates are contesting the election, with the top contenders being Monday Okpebolo of the APC, Aswe Igodalo of the PDP, and Olumide Akpata of the Labour Party. Despite past court rulings limiting military involvement in elections, the deployment is intended to deter violence. While stakeholders caution against over-militarization, officials have reassured voters that security measures are in place for a safe election. The NSCDC has deployed 6,433 officers to critical areas to prevent disruptions. Still on the election, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has urged voters in Edo State to reject the All Progressives Congress in the upcoming governorship election. He said voting for APC would mean endorsing misery and hardship. He made this known in a statement on Facebook on Wednesday titled "The Clear Choice for a Prosperous Edo State." Atiku criticized the APC for plunging Nigeria into suffering, poverty, and insecurity. He praised the People's Democratic Party candidate Dr. Aswe Igodalo for his readiness to serve with competence and commitments to the people's welfare. Atiku encouraged voters to use their power to bring change and reject APC's deceit and self-serving ways. He also emphasized that electing Igodalo would send a strong message across Nigeria and usher in a new dawn for Edo State. Away from political stories to some natural occurrences, the Nigerian Geological Survey Agency has assured residents of the Federal Capital Territory that the recent earth tremors pose no threats to the environment, urging the public not to panic. In a statement on Wednesday, NGSA Director General Professor Olusegun Ige said the agency monitored the tremors and found them to be low in intensity with no danger to the environment. The agency said around 48 separate tremor events were recorded, with both intensity and frequency increasing between September 13 and 16. Ige assured the public that the agency is closely monitoring the situation and will provide updates as necessary. He added that agencies' seismic stations are being monitored in real time to ensure prompt alerts in the event of any significant activity. In the meantime, the Nigerian government has issued a flood alert following the release of water from Cameroon's Lagdo Dam. Director General of the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, Umar Mohammed, announced that the release will be gradual with no major flooding expected. However, states including Adamawa, Taraba, Kogi and Benue are advised to prepare for potential impacts. In 2022, water releases from the Lagdo Dam caused devastating floods in Nigeria, leading to 603 deaths and the displacement of 1.4 million people. Mohammed explained that the current water flow, starting at 100 cubic meters per second, could increase over the next 7 days. The releases will be carefully managed to prevent overwhelming the Benue River system. Authorities are closely monitoring the situation. Earlier on the news, we told you that the Apex Bank in Nigeria, the CBN, will be expanding the use of e-Naira, the digital currency, official digital currency in the country, to the government's public sector, and that would also be pushed towards the private sector also to ensure that people embrace the use of this technology, this financial technology, to drive transactions across board. And earlier on, we had Dr. Samson Simon, who is the chief economist at ARC Economics and Data Limited, and now he joins us to further explore this particular issue as regards the challenges and what the government needs to do to accelerate the process. Dr. Samson Simon, thank you so much for joining us. We had issues with your audio. We want to believe that it is good right now.
I believe it's okay now.
Okay, so let's talk about the e-Naira. Now, let's look at the transactions that have been done with this platform, the embrace, so to speak, before now, and what the government is trying to achieve now. Do you think that what the CBN is pushing for can be achieved with the use of the e-Naira?
Yes, I think what the central bank is trying to do is the right thing to do at the moment. The adoption has been abysmally poor. It has been abysmally low. And if you draw an analogy, China is experiencing the same situation too, and they have decided to deploy strategies to ensure that the adoption grows as fast as it should. And I think the Central Bank of Nigeria is adopting a similar measure to ensure that the adoption is widespread. You rightly mentioned that less than something in the region of a third, 0.36% of the currency in circulation is in e-Naira. That is completely unacceptable because the prospects of the e-Naira are beyond measure. So there's no need for the adoption to be very poor. And the central bank is trying to be more aggressive. They're trying to bring in federal government, bring in state government, bring in deposit money banks, bring in everybody to ensure that the adoption is as widespread as it should be.
Okay, so we just want to understand from this point now what the challenges are now and what are the solutions to scale up the adoption numbers.
There are many challenges. There's a need for incentivization of the adoption of the e-Naira. The incentives are not good enough. So there's a need to incentivize people, to incentivize government to adopt the e-Naira, even for deposit money banks. They need to go out of their way to encourage people to be on the e-Naira. And apart from that, even the infrastructure, the technology, it needs to be more robust than it is now. And even for the safety, the central bank has been saying that it's less susceptible to fraud. But are people really convinced? Most people are not convinced. They feel like it's another way of exposing themselves. So there's a need to dispel this fear that there is nothing to be afraid about. And another point is that some people feel that by adopting the e-Naira, you're subjecting yourself to the prying eyes of the authority. So you need to convince them that there is data privacy. So there are a lot of challenges that need to be tackled.
Of course, we know there are lots of cash, physical cash in circulation. Maybe if this is embraced and well implemented, that will reduce that physicality. Thank you so much, Dr. Samson Simon, for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on now, the wife of the president and national chairman of the Renewed Hope Initiative, Senator Oluremi Tinubu, has charged Nigerian women to use the opportunity provided by technology to rewrite the narratives portraying the country in a bad light, contrary to its true national value. Tinubu gave the charge while declaring open a 2-day Women in Tech Skills training for women entrepreneurs in the South-South region, organized by the Renewed Hope Initiative at the African Center for Excellence, University of Port Harcourt on Tuesday. Represented by the wife of the Rivers State Governor, Valerie Fubara, Tinubu said it behoves on every citizen to project the country in positive trajectory amid the current economic challenges.
Renewed Hope Initiative believes that every woman here have great potentials. I therefore urge you to build more frontiers for networking with global women in tech movement, skills building initiatives, and also foster new areas of mentorship for the younger generation of women interested in tech development. When you do this, rest assured that you would have built the future of e-governance business and championed the cause a new positive thinking, tech service generation of Nigerians on all fronts. Indeed, looking at your faces, I see a greater determination to make this training count. And I assure you that this effort will not be in vain. I'm equally excited for you and for the future that you are about to build.
But I'll tell you that the Lagos State government has announced an increase in boarding fees for its model schools to 100,000 naira starting the 2024-2025 session. Deputy Director of Public Affairs, Ganiu Lawal, explained that the previous fee of 35,000 naira in place since 2021 was no longer feasible. The hike aims to improve student welfare and address the significant student population in boarding schools. Lawal acknowledged the concerns from some parents, but emphasized that the decision, though challenging, prioritizes the students' well-being. The Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education remains committed to enhancing the quality of education despite the fee adjustments. The news continues in West Africa, where around 30 Nobel laureates, including Denis Mukwege and Professor Wole Soyinka, have called for the release of Niger's ousted President Mohamed Bazoum, who has been detained since a military coup in July 2023. In an open letter published on Le Monde, the laureates urged the military junta, led by General Abdurrahmani Tiani, to release the democratically elected leader. Bazoum and his wife are reportedly being held under harsh conditions with limited access to communication. While the military accuses Bazoum of treason and financing terrorism, the Nobel laureates argue these charges are in retaliation for his anti-corruption efforts. Despite his detention, Bazoum has refused to resign, remaining under house arrest in the presidential palace. And in reaction to the events that have played out in the eastern part of the African continent, U.S. President Joe Biden has called on Sudan's warring factions, the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Rapid Support Forces, to re-engage in peace talks and allow humanitarian aid access. In a statement on Tuesday, Biden urged both sides to withdraw their forces, reaffirming America's commitment to supporting the Sudanese people in their pursuit of freedom, peace and justice. The conflict, which began in April last year, has claimed up to 150,000 lives, and efforts to mediate have been hindered by the SAF's refusal to fully participate in negotiations. Biden also voiced deep concerns over the RSF's siege of al-Fashad in Darfur, calling for an immediate end to the violence ravaging the region. Outside Africa, the army says that at least 2 soldiers have died and 26 are said to be wounded in a bomb attack on Tuesday on a military base in Colombia, blaming left-wing National Liberation Army guerrillas who have been in on and off peace talks with the government. The ELN has intensified attacks on military targets since August, when it decided not to renew a ceasefire that had been in force with army forces since 2023 as part of negotiations held fitfully since the previous year. It took place in the town of Puerto Jordan in eastern Arauco department on the border with Venezuela, the army wrote on the social network X. The head of the armed forces, General Luis Emilio Cardoso, said the explosives were detonated in a dump truck. We bring you back to the southern part of Africa to tell you that South Africa is hosting the Africa Aerospace and Defense 2024 exhibition at the Waterkloof Air Force Base in Pretoria. The premier event kicks off from the 18th to the 22nd of September 2024, aimed at strengthening the continent's aerospace and defense sectors. News Central's Bongani Siziba, of course, as we understand, is at the venue, and we cross over to her for more updates.
Yes, good afternoon, Lekan, and also good afternoon to our viewers. We are here in Pretoria at the Aerospace Defense 2024 that is happening the sixth in the world and the biggest in Africa. And also what is happening here, we have an exhibition that is almost like marketing, especially in the Eurospace and in the aerospace and also the defense space, where we see companies from different countries, South Africa included. We know South Africa is a sister country when it comes to its security. It's also happening in other countries, that is in Mozambique and also in DRC. And also yesterday, I was speaking to the Minister of Defense saying that South Africa is ready to chip in any other country that has security threats so that they can help them around the defense system, also Nigeria included. But there are latest innovations that are happening here. I'm joined by Olivia, who is going to speak us about some of the latest innovations that they have here. Good afternoon. Can you please take us to some of these innovations that you have?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity. What you see here is a whole range of different vehicles, because every defense force around the world has their own application. So we have the ability in-house to design a vehicle for the client, and that vehicle doesn't even exist yet. So we can design a vehicle from scratch. And it could be a 4x4, it could be a 6x6, it could be an 8x8, it could be a recovery vehicle like you see the one over there, it could be a command and control vehicle, it could be an ambulance and so on. Or it could even be an amphibious vehicle, a vehicle that can swim in the ocean, although it's an armored vehicle. So we have that ability in-house. So we have 4 companies in the group, and one of the companies, ADGM, they just look at designing the vehicles. So when the client comes to them, they will sit and say, what are your specifications? They will then start designing the vehicle, and they will then produce this to the client. They will go and test it, and they will do certain changes until they get to a stage where they call it PBL, a product baseline. Then it goes for mass production.
Why is exhibitions like this important?
It's very important to show what we can do on the African continent. I think that South Africa is a leader and has been a leader for many, many years in the aviation and in the defense industry, vehicles designed in South Africa. But at this stand, you can see something that's uniquely different to the other stands. And that is, we also are displaying a refurbished vehicle. So you can spend much less money for much more value. And that's the vehicle to my right over there.
Thank you, Lekan. That was Olivia, one of the designers of these vehicles that are here. An innovation.
Bongani, we might not be able to extend this conversation beyond this, but then we appreciate the fact that you've been able to give us these updates as regards the aerospace exhibition in South Africa. Thank you so much. Hopefully we'll get more robust details in a package from you. Let's move on now. Exploding pages claimed the lives of 12 people in Lebanon, including 2 children. The country's health minister said this on Wednesday, updating the toll a day after the blasts blamed on Israel. Hundreds of the wireless devices exploded simultaneously across Lebanon on Tuesday, hours after Israel said it was broadening the aims of the Gaza war to include its fight against Hamas ally Hezbollah. Israel has yet to comment on the unprecedented attacks. And now we have Afia Hagen, our international correspondent, who will be giving us the details as regards this. Afia, tell us about the latest as regards what is happening in Lebanon.
As well as Beirut. The health ministry have just given an update in which they have said 750 people were injured in the south of Lebanon and 1,750 in the Beirut area. Now, Professor Elias Warwick, he's an ophthalmologist who works in the area, and he has said on Tuesday afternoon that it was a nightmare, and he has removed more eyes than he ever has in his 25-year career. Like I said, 750 injured in the south of Lebanon, 1,750 in the Beirut area. 100 hospitals took in patients, 460 surgeries have been performed, and the majority of those, like that Professor Elias Warwick was telling us, were on the eyes, other extremities, including hands, fingers as well. Lots of amputations and eye removals happening in Damascus and in Lebanon because of those explosions.
Now, that's quite serious, I must say. So who's to blame for these exploding, or these pages have actually exploded?
Well, it's been widely reported this morning that Israel, Mossad, and the IDF together as a group are responsible for the exploding pagers. Now, some of the pagers have been recovered intact, i.e. they weren't blown up remotely, so they're being examined for clues. Now, these pagers, particular pagers, are thought to have been made by a Taiwanese company called Gold Apollo. And then in Hungary, they're thought to have passed through there as well before perhaps they made its way to Lebanon via Syria. So quite a trail in trying to figure out where exactly the pagers were altered to have the explosions in them. It's thought the explosions were beside the battery of that pager. And people will be wondering, well, why are Hezbollah using pagers? It's quite an old-fashioned piece of tech in this day and age where we have smartphones, and that's because Hezbollah before have had their phones infiltrated, so have gone for a lo-fi, low-tech solution, as it were, which was pages, which is something that Mossad were very, very clear on and knew that, and it's thought that they are being held responsible for this particular attack.
All right, Afia, again, thank you so much for sharing the details with us. We appreciate that. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we take a look at some of our top stories again. Ex-Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello honors EFCC invitation. Federal government warns of flooding as Cameroon opens Lagdo Dam. We also told you that U.S. President Joe Biden has urged warring parties in Sudan to re-engage in peace talks. You can send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number and email on the screen. Do follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV, and you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Evo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekan Onabanjo.